In a world where people are spending more and more time online, both in their professional and personal lives, the issue of privacy really has come to the fore. And for today, we are looking at the privacy features contained in iOS's latest update, that is iOS 14.5. Hey, what up? It's your boy MobbJustice back again with another video, and for today we are highlighting and looking at some of the privacy features contained in Apple's latest update for the iPhone, that is iOS 14.5, and why Facebook has such a big problem with it and says it'll threaten their business. As always, this video is brought to you by the team over at Lion Media. Head on over to check out some of the crispiest photo, video and audio content. That's www.lionmedia.com. Head on over, check it out and just see what the team can do for you. In a world where people are spending increasing amounts of time online, both professionally and personally, the issue of privacy and cybersecurity is really coming to the fore. Now, one just has to remember what happened when WhatsApp tried to change its privacy policy earlier this year. People saying that they were going to leave WhatsApp, go towards Signal and Telegram, all of that stuff. So people are thinking about this, and Apple is too. With its latest update, Apple really is taking aim at privacy, and that seems to be something that might threaten the business models of Amazon, Google, and especially Facebook, which has really taken it to heart about what Apple is doing with their latest update. Now, looking at iOS 14.5 itself, there's a lot of great features, and I'm going to link a couple of videos in the description if you want to go and see the in-depth list of what's actually going on. There's support for gaming controllers, there's support for AirTags now, but there's two big things that I think should be highlighted. The first one being that this might be the last major update that we see coming along for some of the older iPhones. This is an iPhone 6s from 2015, and it's likely with the way that Apple does things, it usually supports models for about 5 or so years. So there is that risk. iPhone 6s together with phones like the iPhone SE. So that's just something to think about if you have an older iPhone. Now, this is likely to be the last major update that we see within iOS 14. As from about June, we are likely to get some highlights or previews of what iOS 15 is going to be looking like, and from this point forward, Apple will likely be working towards that release, which usually comes alongside the iPhone towards the end of the year. Now, the real bone of contention when it comes to iOS 14.5 is this issue of privacy, and specifically tracking within apps and following people around as they go about their business. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about cookies, how those work, and basically these are pieces of data that can identify you online as you're browsing, and they can follow you online, which is why if you search for a flight on one tab, when you open Facebook or something in another tab, you might start seeing ads for something like that. That's how cookies work. And in the world of smartphones, there are unique identifiers, specifically on models like the iPhone, that Apple is now blocking when it comes to apps talking to each other. When you are using your iPhone, there is some communication that happens between apps, which is why if you move from one app to another, you were doing an activity in one app and then you go into another app and you see something and then you wonder, how did they know something like that? That's how all of that happens. This is what Apple is blocking, and this is what Facebook has a problem with, because Facebook uses all of that information so that it can sell it off to people like advertisers, and then sell you targeted advertising within its apps. So with this latest update, Apple is going to be giving pop-ups each time you open a new app that wants to start tracking you as you go about your business on your phone. This is the bone of contention that the likes of Facebook have. Apple is saying that they want to give consumers a choice in the matter, because traditionally this is stuff that just happens. There's information sharing that happens between apps, and now Apple is saying we want to give consumers the choice of whether or not they want to be followed online and be given some of those targeted ads. In addition to that, something we highlighted when we're talking about the WhatsApp privacy changes is the fact that in iOS 14 now, when you go into the App Store and you want to download an app or update an app, Apple now gives you blocks of information that tell you what data is being collected by that app specifically, and what it's likely going to be using that data for. This is also another move in terms of informing consumers just around what's going on with their data online. Now, as is our way of doing things on this channel, we have to look at the business considerations, and I want to start with Apple, which has positioned itself as being a privacy champion. Steve Jobs, who is the founder of Apple, was very adamant that consumers should have a choice around what their data is used for and which data is collected about them, but more importantly, just letting consumers know what's going on in the background. And it seems Apple has baked a lot of this stuff into their DNA, and it's become part of their running. But at the same time, one has to be cognizant of the fact that this is a differentiator for Apple, because it basically signals to consumers that Apple has your back. You remember a couple of years ago, there was a big case where Apple refused to cooperate with the FBI that wanted a backdoor into a locked iPhone, and they said they weren't going to do that. And it's stories like that that give Apple's consumers, right, that ability to sit and say, okay, Apple has our back, and to keep coming back and buy more Apple products and register for more Apple services, which helps Apple's bottom line at the end of the day. They are a $2 trillion company. In all this, we have to recognize the fact that Apple is not a squeaky clean company. At the end of the day, they are one of the big four tech companies that has been sitting in front of US lawmakers, including Google, Amazon, and Facebook, right, where they're being accused of anti-competitive behavior. And the likes of Epic Games have actually taken them to task. Epic Games is the maker of Fortnite. We actually did a video about some of the issues that they have, blaming Apple and accusing Apple of having an unfair position in the market and abusing their market power because of the App Store, royalties, all of these things. While having a strong stance against data collection, privacy, all of that stuff, Apple's stance has hurt it in some aspects, especially with the development of products like Siri. One will see that Siri was actually the first popular voice assistant, but over the years they've been overtaken by Google Assistant, as well as Amazon's Alexa, even Microsoft's Cortana, simply because these other companies were collecting data and using all of that data to actually improve their product. Whereas Apple decided that they weren't going to be collecting and processing this data out there. So to some extent, one could argue that their privacy policy has hurt some of their product lines. And whilst we're talking about this, I don't think it would be a complete discussion if we didn't consider the fact that Apple has been moving more and more into services. The likes of Amazon, Google, and Facebook, have services online where they use data to improve their products. And Apple has traditionally been a hardware company, but as they launch more and more services, think Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, Apple Fitness Plus, etc., how are they going to find ways to improve those offerings? Because when you look at the way that YouTube's recommendation engine or Netflix's recommendation engine, a lot of that stuff comes through data collection. So one really wonders how Apple's stance on privacy is going to impact the ability to develop and to create the best when it comes to the services part of their business. Because Facebook is the one that's really against what's going on, I'm going to touch on two brief points when it comes to the business case for Google. The first one is the fact that Google seems to have already been working on its own alternatives to get around some of these issues. Currently, they're actually developing something called federated learning of cohorts, where basically instead of cookies that we explained earlier on, they take a group approach where basically they collect data on groups and then they sell data about groups and the characteristics of people that make up a specific group, and they think that they can get 95% of the accuracy that they could get from cookies, right? And you can see that's what they're doing on the side of browsing, and one has to wonder if there's a similar approach that they might take or will take when it comes to smartphones and how those actually track you online. And also the other bit about Google is the fact that Google does run and operate iOS's major competitor, that is Android. And as we know, if Apple does something, there's usually pressure in the market for others to follow or to develop something similar. So if Apple has taken such a strong stance on privacy, what is Google going to do? Are they going to follow suit and in some ways try to hurt their own business? We just wait and see. Now for Facebook, what they're arguing is the fact that by not having this ability, they will not be able to create the targeted ads that they've become famous for, that they won't be able to use their platforms as a way for businesses to target their specific audiences. And they're saying that this is going to hurt small businesses more than anything else. At the same time, they're also arguing that by implementing this, they may be forced over time to actually start charging for their services, and one has to wonder whether people will actually be willing to pay for use of things like Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, or WhatsApp. But that remains to be seen. The other bit to consider is that WhatsApp privacy policy. When it's existing in the realm of iOS 14.5, what does it actually mean, right? Because one of the things that I criticized Facebook and WhatsApp about when they implemented their policies, that there was no choice. It was just accept, or after a certain amount of time you're gonna stop having use with that application. So now that this new update is there, I really wonder how they're going to be able to implement such things going forward. Before we end, I do think something needs to be said about the small businesses. Given Facebook's track record when it comes to all of these issues, I am a bit cynical when I hear them talking about becoming a champion for small businesses, taking on Apple when it comes to this new privacy policy. That said, we do need to recognize the fact that the new privacy policy might have some type of an impact on small businesses, especially if they aren't able to target their specific audience or people that would be interested in their specific products or services, right? That problem might escalate even further, right? The more that people decide to opt out of being tracked with their different services, or if other apps platforms decide to follow in Apple's lead. Now, in conclusion, there are two things that are key when it comes to this issue. The first one is the fact that how many people are actually going to choose to opt out of being tracked online? Right now, we're expecting that, the majority of people are going to say they don't want to be tracked, but only time will tell what the actual results or reality will be on the ground. The second bit, and this is where I think the likes of Facebook are really worried, is the fact that Apple is a trend setter, right? If people do decide to take this on and do opt out in their numbers, Apple is still a small piece of the market because you have much bigger smartphone makers, the likes of Samsung, Huawei, etc., because Android is still the biggest operating system when it comes to smartphones around the world. But the real risk comes if there is pressure for similar features to be seen on the side of Android. That's where things really become hot, for the likes of Facebook and other advertising companies. But only time will tell, and we'll be keeping an eye on this issue. But one of the things that I have no doubt in my mind is that the team over at Facebook is going to find a way around some of these issues. We already highlighted what Google is doing with their FLOCs, or federated learning of cohorts, as a way to stop using cookies. So I do think that there is a team at Facebook somewhere that's probably working around these issues. So that's it for this video. Let us know in the comments, do you care about these issues? Are you going to be opting in or out if you're an iPhone user? If you're an Android user, do you want to see these features coming over to the side of Android? Do you think Facebook is going to find a way around some of these issues? And do you think Apple is going to be able to maintain this stance on privacy, especially as they become more and more of a services company? Let us know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Hey, this is Baby G, and you're watching the Mob Justice channel. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Live it, love it, like it. This is the Mob Justice TV.